This is my final project for photographic communications. 1. My name is Emily Cryer. I am in period 2 and I'm a sophomore. Some of my favorite projects include Aperture Priority, Film, and Pinhole Camera. Photography has always been interesting to me. Both my grandparents were wedding photographers, so it's always been a really big part of my life. I took this class because I wanted to learn more about how cameras worked and why photos turn out how they do. I also wanted to work with film because that's what my grandparents work with, and I've always found it so fascinating. Another thing was that when I was an 8th grader, almost freshman, I came to open house and I saw the photo class because they had a table set up, and I'm like, oh, hey, that's really neat. I sort of want to do this. The first project I chose to reflect on, I guess, was the Pinhole Project. Since the 2 pictures featured on screen right now were taken with the pinhole camera, we had to use a lot of technical knowledge to take the pictures and to even build the camera. And then later we had to develop the negatives and then make positives from the negatives. Some rules of composition that are being used are rules of third. I'm not sitting directly on a third line, but there is one extremely close to me. This helps draw the viewer's attention, and by understating myself, it wasn't completely on me, you can still see the school. It makes it sort of oh, I just realized that there's a person with a skull for a head on there. I chose this image because it was a lot of fun to make, and this is actually my second attempt. My first attempt at the ghost picture didn't turn out, and we never really figured out why. Must be cursed or something. The story of this picture is, I am a huge Tim Burton fan, and I love horror movies, so I came up with this idea in my head, where I would take this skull and put it in front of my face, and then instead of going 2/3 of the time, I would only do 1/3 and take it out, so you can still see, the details of my face just laid over the skull, so it seemed like my skin was transparent, but that didn't really work. But, what they say about mistakes. There aren't really any, just happy accidents. I'm still really happy with how it turned out. The next project I wanted to focus on was the film, because it was a lot of fun for me. Taking the pictures, there are a lot of technical components because you had to be in full manual mode on the film cameras, and you also learned how to develop the film, make the contact sheet, and then make the final print out of the film and using the contact sheet. So it was pretty difficult, but it was a lot of fun. Some of the rules of composition being used include simplicity because of the contrasting dark background with the bright sign. Also simplicity because it's a dark background with a really bright sign. I chose this image because it was one of my favorite photos to take, and I feel like the picture is, for lack of a better term, my baby. I developed the film and made the contact sheet and then made the print, and a lot of care and time and effort went into this, so I felt like it was something that was really fun to showcase. The story of this photo is actually very interesting, at least to some people. The weekend I had the film camera, my dad and I went to see Jackson Galaxy at the Rialto, and if you don't know who he is, he's basically a cat behavioralist, and he was giving a lecture. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I won't be able to take pictures during the presentation, but I can at least take pictures of the Rialto because it is gorgeous in there. And so, yeah, it took me forever to get this shot right because there were cars coming by all the time and it just completely messed up the light settings every time. So that was definitely interesting trying to figure that out. The last project I wanted to focus on was the Aperture Priority Mode project, or the AV mode. For the technical aspect of this, you have to know how to work AV mode and use a large aperture to achieve that shallow depth of field. For the rules of composition, this one was sort of hard for me to think of. I said perspective because these are small children's toys that are, again, tiny, and I sort of zoomed in on them because kids really focus in on stuff they love, and many kids, when they're younger, they get attached to photos, they get attached to toys. And I wanted to zoom in on them and be like, oh, these toys mean something. I chose this image because I like how it captures, the inner child. When Miss Amudas first pulled out the toys, we were all sort of like, ooh, what's that? And of course, leave it to a bunch of high school students to find some joy in such simple objects like a child's play toy. And then the story behind this photo, I'm a huge Transformers fan, and the yellow car reminded me of Bumblebee. And then I saw the dinosaur, and it reminded me of the third movie, Age of Extinction. So I sort of just put the two together in a funny way in my head because, fighting in the movie and stuff. So, yeah, now there's a car on the dinosaur. For advice to future students, I would say don't be scared. A lot of pictures I took were out there and very hard to find and actually take. Also, if you invest your time into this class, you'll get a lot out of it, not just learning about photography, but in life as well. The most valuable lesson I learned would have to be just take the shot. I've noticed that in life and photography, you really have to put yourself out there if you want something in return. For my inspirational quote, I chose Winston Churchill because he's a great role model. But success is not final, failure is not fatal, but is the courage to continue that counts. It's one of my favorite quotes. Thank you for watching.